afternoon and welcome. I'm Curator Heidi Rabenowitz-Owosu-Lopez-Wong, and it is my pleasure to guide you through one of the most divisive controversies in ancient history, an issue as hotly contested in the 20th and 21st century as slavery was in the 19th. It is hard to believe today, but abortion facilities were bombed, providers were threatened, even murdered. This is one of the museum's oldest pieces. It represents a pregnant woman's judgment by a hospital abortion committee. These male-dominated committees of doctors and legislators decided whether or not a woman could obtain an abortion, normally granted only because the pregnancy would kill her, thus depriving the husband of childcare for pre-existing children. Along the top, abortion is displayed on primitive television technology as the pregnant woman is led into the hall to be judged by Dr. Anubis, jackal-headed god of administration and order. Amit, the soul eater, hungrily awaits the outcome, ready to devour the woman's future plans, while ibis-headed Miss Toth carefully documents the proceedings. Having passed the test, the pregnant woman is ushered into the operating room of Dr. Osiris. Here, surrounded by symbols of his power, caduceus, instruments, and diploma, he will grant her a safe abortion. See the hieroglyphics below the diploma? They read, "Rule women, men," possibly a translation of the Latin motto from his medical school. Moving on in chronological order, we have the medieval-style stained glass Solomon window. This is a rare photograph of the window in an unknown location, thought safe from terrorists. In spite of this, in 2027, it was almost destroyed by a Molotov cocktail thrown by real women guerrillas. Thanks to generous donors, in 2085, funds were raised for its restoration. To donate directly from your bank account, blink twice at the exit scanners as you leave. As opposed to the wisdom of biblical Solomon, this stained glass window depicts the inertia of Solomon and refers to Quebec's 1989 Chantal Daigle court case in which Ms. Daigle's abusive ex-partner obtained a court injunction forbidding her to obtain a legal abortion. While the courts dithered over who had ownership of the fetus, the desperate Daigle slipped across the U.S. border to obtain her abortion. This was, of course, before the U.S. Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade in 2022. Tremblay was later charged with physically assaulting his next partner.
We don't learn that in social dimensions.
Shh. Controversy surrounds this next work of unknown origin. It clearly refers to Masaccio's Renaissance expulsion from the Garden of Eden. But has the couple locked the abortion clinic doors behind them in shame after the fact, as anti-choice zealots believed, or as historians now believe, were they turned back in despair from a closed clinic? Throughout the era, contraception, abortion, and childcare were readily available if you were wealthy and privileged. The title of this parody of Fragonard's famous painting, The Swing, comes from Gautier's 1835 preface to his novel, Mademoiselle de Maupin. And what has poor Vice done that you are so angry with it? Vice, which is so good-natured, so easy to get on with, which means only to enjoy itself and not to bore others, if this be possible. Not much is known about this large triptych in which men of religion, politics, and science attempt to pinpoint the precise beginning of life. It is undoubtedly Canadian. The central panel refers to Canada Senate chambers. The frame is of special interest, referring as it does to the medieval theological question, how many angels can dance on the head of a pin? It is hard to believe, but it was a hotly contested issue. To continue from left to right, we see Bishop Ussher sets the beginning of creation at 9 a.m., October 26, 4004 BCE. This precise time was determined by 17th century Irish prelate James Ussher, a renowned expert in Semitic languages after a lifetime of biblical research. It can still be found in old Bibles, and it was promoted by young earth creationists until our own century. Here, we see male faceless legislators filibuster, check their simple wrist chronometers, or indulge in a little snooze. 300 years after Ussher, scientists were still obsessed with determining the precise beginning of creation. Eminent theoretical physicist Stephen Hawking, a proponent of the archaic Big Bang theory, suffered from ALS and was confined to a wheelchair. Here, we see a woman hold out a cigarette for him. Yes?
What's a cigarette?
Great question. It is a paper tube of tobacco. And although we know that tobacco smoke was inhaled well into the 21st century, why the woman offers Hawking a cigarette after the Big Bang remains a mystery. The era's cumbersome methods of contraception were not 100% reliable, yet women were charged with irresponsibility when they became pregnant. Next to this 20th century surgical pack is a 19th century daguerreotype case found next to the diary of a Saskatchewan dressmaker. In the diary, she chronicles the difficult decision to undergo a second abortion after becoming pregnant in spite of a tubal ligation. I personally find the 2 little seed pearls she's mounted on velvet extremely moving. Nature morte, literally dead nature, is a French term for a still life. This painting is typical of the archaic ad agency style. The objects portrayed are Lysol, a toxic disinfectant, Dettol, an antiseptic, permanganate, a strong purple dye, and slippery elm, a herb used since antiquity to bring on strong uterine cramping. Just some of the backstreet remedies women resorted to when denied legal means, with often tragic results. The introduction of sharp objects into the womb was also practiced. With legalization, deaths and maimings due to self-inflicted abortions virtually disappeared, only to return with each reintroduction of restrictive legislation. In 1990, 20-year-old Toronto University student Yvonne Yurovich died of a coat hanger abortion just 2 weeks after the introduction of such a bill. Following the overturn of Roe v. Wade, some US jurisdictions made it illegal to even drive a woman to obtain an abortion. Because procedures were driven underground, we don't have accurate numbers for American deaths. The practice of gilding hollowed eggshells is believed to have begun at a Tupperware party in Oklahoma as part of the Sacred Fetus Mysteries. Believers packed the fragile shells in bubble wrap and mailed them to televangelists. If the egg arrived intact, it was believed that the sender would be favored in the lottery. Question.
Yes. I know humans operated without the help of AI, so their thinking may have been a little screwed up. Even so, how could people think things like that?
Well, I think that 21st century memento mori can best be understood from a quote by 20th century poet Annie Dillard. I don't know what it is about fecundity that so appalls. I suppose it is the teeming evidence that birth and growth, which we value, are ubiquitous and blind. That life itself can be so astonishingly cheap. That nature can be as careless as it is beautiful. And that with that extravagance goes the crushing waste that will include our own cheap lives. Every glistening egg is a memento mori.
It's baby Elvis!
That's right. The advertisement for this 2025 Corel collector plate from the Famous Fetus Series reads, "Long before his birth, the preborn Elvis Presley showed the musical genius that would take the world by storm. Now, you too can commemorate this famous fetus with the Jefferson's Collection magnificent hand-painted masterpiece, Elvis."
Ooh, so frang. I want one for my room.
And here we have a small egg tempera and gold leaf icon of Canadian doctor Henry Morgentaler. For openly performing medically safe abortions, Morgentaler endured countless death threats against himself and his family, and a firebombing that destroyed his Toronto clinic. The threat was real. Canadian doctors providing abortions were stabbed or shot by sniper. In the US, several were killed or injured, including Jewish gynecologist Dr. Barnett Slepian, who was assassinated in his own kitchen. Like Slepian, Morgentaler was Jewish, a Holocaust survivor, in fact. Our collection includes several examples from a 2-inch thick file of paper hate mail Dr. Morgentaler received in a single month. Much of it is shockingly anti-Semitic. Yes.
What happened to him?
Well, he was threatened, brought to trial 5 times, and imprisoned for 10 months. But ultimately, St. Henry was awarded the Order of Canada. In a lighter vein is this New Yorker cartoon of a waiter asking a fetus in a high chair if he's ready to order for his date. Legislative chaos ensued after the enactment of the Preborn Patriots Act, and it became an irresistible subject for political cartoonists. In the ensuing abortion war, both sides relied heavily on emotional images to incite their followers to action. 2 protest banners carried into battle. Our last work is the Madonna of the Last Goldfinch, possibly Eastern European from the 2040s. In a denuded landscape, a serene Madonna holds aloft the last remaining goldfinch as privileged first world infants squirm their way to it, past hordes of the world's starving children. In the face of catastrophic climate change, environmental collapse, and rampant social inequities, efforts to quash reproductive rights were at last viewed as a red herring. With the exception of a few minor skirmishes after over a century of conflict, the abortion wars were finally over. This concludes our talk. We are proud of the Abortion Wars Museum collection. Should the galacto-pandemic one day subside, we hope that you will be able to visit the actual museum in person, as the ancients used to say.